In late 1974, I wrote to the manor saying that I wanted to come and stay, and Patita Pavana Prabhu, who was the guest master, he said, yes, come. So I stayed for some time, late 1974, and then eventually I joined in March 75. Yeah, I believe when I went up to stay as a guest that Srila Prabhupada was there. It's hazy memories. And all the devotees were the same, including Prabhupada. He was just kind of, but I believe he was there. Yeah, so that was in March 75. Well, when I'd been a student in Paris, and a few years prior to that, and one day I was walking down the street and I heard a kirtan from around the corner, which I'd never heard anything about Hare Krishna. I didn't know what it was, but I was so attracted to the sound of his kirtan, like a memory from the distant past. And I ran around the corner and saw the devotees and 4 brahmacharis standing chanting. And I was just so attracted by and intrigued by these people. So they gave me the address of the temple there at Fontenay-aux-Roses. And I went there a few times for Sunday feasts. So that initial contact, I remembered that, even though I continued in Maya for a few more years. But then when I got back to England, I started practicing yoga and reading Baba Ram Das Be Here Now book. And I got to a certain point, I realized that if I want to make advancement on this path, then I need the company of transcendentalists who know that it's necessary to go beyond duality to attain the absolute truth. And the devotees were the only people I knew who seemed to be in that category. Even amongst the followers of Baba Ram Das, I didn't find any who really seemed to understand that. So, so then I started trying to find them. We didn't have Google at that time, so yeah, that's when I remembered the devotees. Yeah. Eventually, I found the temple in Barry Place and went there first. So, and as soon as I got to the manor, I just wanted to join up. Forget about everything, get my bead bag, shave up, and just surrender completely. Yeah. It all brought back a deep, deep memories somehow. And the first thing, or even I remember the postman at the manor used to comment that when he comes to deliver the mail every day, he drives through the gates, and he says, every day I look forward to this. It's like driving through a wall, a kind of subtle invisible wall. The atmosphere here is so amazing, he told me. So I remember that. And then the next thing I remember was the curious kind of mystical smell of dirty shoes and incense that hits you when you go into the shoe room. A unique kind of 70s Hare Krishna experience. Otherwise, yeah, just the transcendental association of the devotees and the deities, which is so incomparable, and you can't find that anywhere else. In all my experience of life, there's nothing, in education and family life and social life, nothing even remotely approached the atmosphere and the feeling I got from being with the devotees and the deities in the temple. Everything just made sense. That we're not supposed to just spend life trying to arrange comfort for oneself. That the pleasure should be given to Krishna. Not that I should try to seek pleasure. This idea in the temple, it made sense to me as soon as I joined. Sleep simply on the floor, get up very early, even though it's not comfortable to get up early. Do things which are not immediately pleasing to me, because the Guru has said that they're pleasing to Krishna. This way of life, it just struck a chord with me. I thought, this is it, this is right. Society's got it wrong. I don't remember much until I went on travelling Sankirtan, which, as far as I remember, was 2 or 3 days after I joined. They put me in the back of a Ford Transit on top of a bunch of BTG boxes and said, this is where we're going to sleep. And that was it for 5 years, so never looked back. So it was book distribution, basically from the beginning. The Sankirtan, the merciful Sankirtan leaders, Raghavir Prabhu, who is now Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, and Janananda Prabhu, who is now Janananda Goswami, they trained me up and sent me out. I was travelling all over the country, all over the British Isles actually, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and the whole of England. We must have visited every town over 30,000 in all those places. Over 30,000 people, population. And it was, there was momentum. But Prabhupada's physical presence and encouragement and orders, it created, a kind of tidal wave. We were just riding on the wave. And that was the mood of going out on travelling Sankirtan. We knew that there are other parties all over the place. Usually in England there were 4 or 5 travelling parties. 4, probably. So, we were competing with them and phoning the scores in every night to the manor. And there was just a lot of spiritual energy. It was a frontier, we were distributing these books that were going to change the world. It was very enlivening. I think if you speak to any devotee from that who did that at that time, he'll tell you that that was the best time of his life. Because it was super austere. Traveling, going in winter, midwinter, no heating in the van. Cold shower outside in the morning. I'm sure many people have given their testimonies. And then, standing on a freezing cold street all day, and eating simply, and traveling to another town the next day, just week in, week out. And we would go generally for 2 weeks out, and then come back to the manor. Saturday night. Saturday is always the biggest day for book distribution. We come back Saturday night and have an ecstatic morning program on Sunday morning in front of the deities, and then leave Sunday evening before we got into Maya in the temple. Fill up the books, clean the van, associate with the other Sankirtan devotees, all the other devotees, and then head out in the evening. All brahmacharis, 20 or so brahmacharis, and you couldn't really think of anything but book distribution, because the kirtans were just indescribable, off the ground, on and on, all around the building. It would burst out of the temple room, go upstairs onto the corridor, up into the brahmachari ashram, back down into the kitchen, round the table, back into the temple room, just rocking and rolling. And then, fired up, focused classes on preaching. When I was the head gardener, I once wanted to understand the history of the land there, land use at the manor. So I researched and got some aerial photographs from previous, which were taken, I think, at the war time, and which covered the whole of our property, and had them blown up and as far as possible to not lose their sharpness. And I remember being really, I don't know where those photos are now, but I remember being really struck by how intensively they would use the land for food production. So this was, 70 years ago. Every square inch was just fruit trees, and you could see vegetable patches and berry bushes, and everywhere, all the car parking space we have now, all orchards and stuff like that. And apparently what's now, or when I was there a few years ago, was the garage, the mechanic's garage, up against the wall of where the Rath cart is. Is that still a garage? That was for apple storage. And they would have, they had mastered the art, I understand, of storing apples. They would pick them when they're ripe and whatever it is in the autumn, and store them on wooden racks in the dark. And these apples, because the way they were stored, the microclimate in there, they would last for months and months and months, completely fresh. The lake was dug by German prisoners of war in the First World War, by hand. That's a man-made artificial lake. It's fed by a pipe that comes from the pond in Lechmore Heath. And it's always dirty because lich in Old English means dirty, and mere means puddle or pond. So that's where the name Lechmore comes from. And it explains why that water is always dirty. It's runoff from the hill up the other side of Lechmore Heath, basically, and it gathers all the oil from cars on the roads, and the previous owners, or someone, I think the de Havilland family owned. They had an aircraft. The aircraft de Havilland people used to live there before it was a nursing home at some stage. And I don't know, but I presume it was them who built all these beautiful artificial rocks around the lake, which are still in pretty good condition and look just like real rocks. Well, Prabhupada was leaving the manor. It must have been in his 76th visit. He was leaving the manor to go to the airport, and we were going to follow him. So I was sitting in the car park at the back of the kitchen. It was all car park then. Dwakapuri hadn't established his outdoor sitting area at that time. It was car park all the way up to the showroom door. So I was sitting in a van, a Sankirtan van, right by the back of the kitchen, the opening there which goes to the back of the kitchen. The van was pointing outwards. The gate to the village was at that time open. We didn't have the rear entrance, of course. I mean, we didn't have the new entrance from the 441?
A41.
The A41. And Srila Prabhupada had got into his car at the back door there, I assume. But anyway, the car was going to pass my van. Prabhupada was sitting on my side of his car in the back. And I was sitting like this, folded hands, my head just waiting for his car to appear, so I would follow him. And as his car came very slowly by, and as he came by, he looked up at me. Our eyes met. He returned his gesture, this gesture, and our eyes met for about 2 or 3 seconds, and it was such a incredibly mystical moment where Prabhupada seemed to, by his mystic potency, he seemed to just take me onto a different plane of existence for a moment. I suppose this is what's meant by Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, 11th of a second's association with a pure devotee. And he gave me an awareness, a vision of many past lives of doing all sinful activities. And he made it clear to me that he was aware of that, all that nonsense, and that I was not condemned for it, but I was accepted and encouraged and told that that's the past, here is a future for you in your relationship with me. I can lead you to a higher plane of existence. And then he was gone. He was, he said, I am your father. I am your father. I am your real father. That was the message. And it was, by his potency, it was just an indelible, unforgettable spiritual experience. Which, thinking when I think about it, it's amazing that someone who's totally unqualified could be given, that gift of a moment of spiritual awareness. Totally sinful and speculative and, insincere. And still, the pure devotee is able to part the clouds to give a higher taste. 1977, I remember the first time we saw Srila Prabhupada, all the devotees, was in his room, in his darshan room. We were all admitted to the room, and Prabhupada was sitting there behind his desk looking extremely emaciated. And I may get some details wrong here, but there was some plate of food, of prasadam, in front of him. On his desk, he had a shiny desk, and he was eating grapes, leaning back, and everyone filed in, sat down, and packed the room, because there were devotees from all over Europe there. And Prabhupada was very relaxed, pleasant mood, looking around the room and eating grapes. He would pop a grape into his mouth without touching his mouth and spit the pips out without moving, completely relaxed, just spit them out. They were bouncing off everywhere on the desk. And then he said something, he looked up after a while and said, so I don't know if this is exact words, but words to the effect that everybody is all right. And the whole room just kind of melted with Jai Prabhupada. He was not thinking of his own condition. Poor, no question of poor me or anything like that. He was, as ever, simply thinking of his disciples, the welfare of his disciples. I remember him being carried up and down the stairs in a palanquin, which I think is still there, by Amita and Gokulananda, who were traveling Sankirtan devotees, and at least at that time quite muscular. And this palanquin, the center of balance, was too high. You know, on a palanquin, the center of balance should be low, below the poles, so that it doesn't tip. It swings, but it doesn't tip. But this one was not well constructed, and I was fearful, you know, watching Prabhupada coming down the stairs on this thing. But he was, I remember being struck by how completely serene he was. Just, you know, like he's really feeling safe in Krishna's hands. Completely fearless. So he would come down to the temple room, and we would do Guru Puja in front of him. One time I was able to offer the puja to him, and I remember I made two mistakes in that group, in that arti. One was that at that time the pujari used to distribute the water to the devotee. He would turn around and throw it over all the devotees. So I did this, and I threw the water like this, and my hand went too far around, and some of it splashed on Prabhupada's dhoti. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was sitting there. I noticed that he noticed this, and I saw him. He thought he almost was going to say something or indicate that I should be more careful, but he decided not to, apparently. But I learned the lesson. And then the other, not really a mistake, but there was a fly on Prabhupada's leg, and I wanted to get this fly off, but the fly didn't want to move. So when with the chamara, you know, I was trying to, you know, come down just past the leg and get it to move, but he wouldn't budge. And then afterwards, I learned that it's okay to touch the body with the chamara. If I'd known that, I would have got rid of it. Very blissful kirtans in front of Prabhupada. I remember him, the devotees dancing in ecstasy, and Prabhupada nodding his head. He had these sunglasses on to shade his eyes, and he was sitting with his hands clasped in front of him. And then at a certain point in the kirtan, sometimes he would just move his fingers a little bit, indicating that we should dance more. So when that happened, then the whole room would just explode with energy, hit the roof. His Vyasa Puja came up at that time, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj gave a talk on Prabhupada. Sitting beside him, Prabhupada was on the Vyasasan. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was sitting beside him, narrating Srila Prabhupada's life. And Prabhupada would occasionally, I think, add points or correct dates, as far as I remember. And then at one point, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said that Srila Prabhupada was only actually with his guru for 2 weeks total. And I noticed that Prabhupada grinned when he said that. And I didn't understand, but afterwards, I don't remember how, but I learned that Prabhupada's what Prabhupada was thinking was that he says, I was only with my Guru Maharaj for 2 weeks, but he doesn't know that my Guru Maharaj was always at my side at every moment. Not that Tamal Krishna Maharaj didn't know, but Prabhupada was making the point. Prabhupada, I think, went to the Watford General Hospital to have an operation done on the urinary tract. Well, it was shocking. Yeah, it was drastic, very drastically shocking. It made me feel kind of protective and indebted to Prabhupada for, not changing despite extreme material difficulty. He didn't change. He was still traveling. I still felt the same love from him and guidance and shelter, despite extreme difficulty. It was very it intensified the relationship, I would say. I remember that we had, I believe we distributed more books in 1 week while he was there. He was there for more than 1 week, but in 1 week period, we distributed more books than any temple had ever distributed. This may be disputed, but I believe that was the case because of his presence. A lot of books, anyway. Yeah. I think I can't speak for others, but it wasn't a possibility that Prabhu would actually leave us. So he went to Vrindavan, and we were back to normal. He was gonna, everything was gonna go on as normal. That's all I could say about that. I was with Ankota, who I met recently, and we discussed this event of hearing of Prabhupada's passing. For one reason or another, we had not phoned in our scores, which customarily we did every evening. For 2 or 3 days we hadn't done that. So Prabhupada passed away, and then 1 or 2 days passed before I phoned in. And when I called Jamananda, Prabhu was on the phone, and I picked up the phone. I was, Hare Krishna, set my businesses, and we did okay today. And sorry I didn't call in a couple of days ago, and these are the scores, and so did all right. And he said, he was silent, and when I stopped talking, he said, Prabhu, there's some news from India. And I thought, oh, Jai, Prabhupada's got better. So I said something, what? Oh, so what's the news? And he said, Prabhupada's left the planet. So then there was a very long silence on both ends. And so I went back to the van, and the vans we had then, it was a curtain. You come in the front door, and the back was curtained off. So all the devotees were in the back counting their collection for the day. And I opened the door. I said, Prabhu, there's some news from India. And then Prabhupada's left the planet. So again, it was this complete stunned silence. I heard Ankota sniff. And so we were told to go back to the manor. That's where it really hit me. I went back. We arrived in the evening, and I sat down in front of Prabhupada Murti. I went into the temple and offered obeisances, and in front of Prabhupada's Murti, that's when it really hit me that what had happened. Prabhupada had left the planet, and this was a major change in the lives of all the devotees. We sang Jaya Nila Premadan. Bhajahari Prabhu was the temple president. That's what I remember of that, but hearing the news. Vichitvirya was temple president of Berry Place, Bhajahari of the manor. Prabhu Vishnu Maharaj was overseeing 3 temples, I think, Edinburgh, Berry Place, and the manor. His order became the whole thing. We had no alternative, you know, we'd left material life behind. And now we'd met the pure devotee, and now he'd gone. But he'd remained in the formless order. So that was our guiding principle and shelter still.